I'm keeping it at 55 and over because that's where the data ends. I could call it older folks, elderly folks, but it's 55 and above that are part of this database. So I want to talk a little bit about the background of how we got here, talk about older folks, how and why they're overdosing, and what we can do about it. Let's start with some basics, though, and just talk about opioids. I want to just remind you what opioids are. We have the natural opioids that come right from poppy seeds, and the semi-synthetic, which are concentrated poppy seed oils or derivatives of poppy seeds that are chemically altered a bit. And a lot of these, oxycodone, hydrocodone, Norco, Percocet, a lot of the semi-synthetic opioids were developed in the 90s and early 2000s as pain relievers, and they are great pain relievers, but we found out that they're highly addictive. And that's a big part of why we're where we are with addiction right now. And then the synthetic, which are made exclusively in labs. The big one is fentanyl, which you're all aware of. And if you look at overdose deaths, and I think everybody's probably seen this type of graph, the black line is total overdose deaths, which peaked at about 110 in 2022. That number's coming down now. But as fentanyl was developed and hit the markets around 2010, 2015, it took off and replaced heroin and other semi-synthetic opioids as the top cause of death. And now 70% of the deaths we see involve fentanyl or are multifaceted in nature, involving fentanyl and a variety of other substances as listed here. Methamphetamine is number 2 on the list as far as deaths. Let's look into 2025. And as I mentioned, the numbers are getting better. And we peaked around 23 or so, 24. And now it looks like we're going to be dropping down to about 80,000, maybe even less with total overdose deaths, which is a good thing. We're moving in the right direction. Fentanyl, as many of you are aware of, only a small dose can kill you, and you can snort it, you can inject it, or you can get it in pill form. And fake pills are out there, counterfeit pills are out there, and are a danger to everyone because they can contain various amounts of fentanyl. So let's talk about older adults. And the graph I showed you, pretty similar to this. This is deaths per 100,000 population. Synthetic opioids, that's fentanyl, is the number 1 cause of death in the 65 and older population. But what's a little interesting here is the semi-synthetic opioids, which are the pain relievers, typically pills, are the second leading cause of death. Heroin's down here. Methamphetamine is not on here. It's probably equal to the semi-synthetic opioids. But I think what this relates to is that there are probably a lot more older folks dying of pills than younger folks. So this is just another look at men versus women. It's about 2 to 1. These are 65 and older, men versus women. Again, 2 to 1 rate of deaths in the elderly age group. And it looks like it's getting more and more disparate. Women are kind of leveling off and men continue to climb. This is a study out of Toronto that looked at ER admissions for stimulants and the rate of stimulant use. This is 65 and above as well, is climbing rapidly. This is cocaine, ecstasy, and methamphetamine. But again, older adults are using stimulants just like younger adults. So I started looking at this database about a year ago, and I'm not going to get into all the things I have on this slide, but it's called the System for Overdose Surveillance, or SOS. And it looks at overdoses with deaths and EMS naloxone administration around the state. And I'll get into that in a minute, but this is where I started. And we looked at 15 counties. We actually have 25 counties, but I pulled out 15 counties a month or two ago to do a presentation to prevention specialists at Up North Prevention and Catholic Human Services. So the 15 counties that I looked at, only 10 of them put their numbers into this database because coroners don't always use this database. But you can see that there's a wide range of ages in the deaths reported. Highest is 35 to 44, and then the second highest is 55 and over. So these are deaths. 2-to-1 male to female, which is similar to the slide I recently showed. Traverse City accounts for half the deaths, and you can see the other areas as listed here. If you look at EMS, these are ambulances or fire departments giving naloxone to reverse overdoses. What we saw and found very interesting is instead of that even age group with the deaths, we see this huge number in the 55 and over age group. And that piqued our interest. So we started doing some deeper dives. And if I go county by county and look at Kalkaska County, for instance, again, you've got more overdose deaths in the older age group than in any other age group. Now, this spans 3 decades potentially, but it's still a lot of overdoses. This does not, the EMS reversals do not include reversals that are done by law enforcement. And often law enforcement is first on the scene. So that is not part of this database. So the number's probably higher. Here's where they're happening in Kalkaska County. When I showed these numbers in Antrim County, the sheriff was part of the presentation, was in the room, and I asked him afterwards what he's seeing in the 55 and over overdoses. And his insight was that it's often somebody that's using pain relievers and they take an extra pill or two and they go out. They call EMS, the police arrive on the scene, they resuscitate, and they take it from there. Just want to show you Wayne County. These are deaths, 55 and over, high number. These are overdose reversals. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Is this is not just a rural thing. Washtenaw County looks just like this as far as 55 and over. The other counties I've looked at downstate, very similar patterns. The overdose rate in the 55 and over with reversals is very high. So we've done some research into what might be going on. And I already mentioned that opioids in pill form are probably part of this. And if you look at that age group, they were in that cohort in the 2000s where everybody got pain relievers. And some of the older folks are still struggling with the use of pain relievers. Most are hopefully now on safe doses of pain relievers. But what's happening now is their metabolism is slowing. They're being put on multiple medications because of their age and their chronic diseases. Cognitive decline, their memory's not as good. So they're forgetting and they're misusing their pills when they don't necessarily think they're going to be misusing their pills. Baby boomers, this age group has always had a lot of drug use. And as they get older, with these other factors going on, they're dying like everybody else is dying that have used substances chronically. But I also want to mention, I think a lot of times substance use disorder in the elderly is under-recognized. I don't think physicians, neighbors, family members realize that folks might be taking too many pain relievers, might be using too much alcohol, they're using marijuana, they're using kratom, and they're getting by, but people aren't recognizing that, hey, you got an issue. You shouldn't be using alcohol starting at noon every day. You shouldn't be using marijuana 3 times a day. It might help you with your pain. It might help you with other things, but you shouldn't be using it that often. And again, you get into the metabolism in the older folks, and you get into their memory declines, and suddenly they're overdosing.